I want to start with a story, one you definitely know, but I think we need to look at it through the lens of this huge stack of reports we have in front of us today.
Okay, I'm with you.
We all know the myth of Icarus. You know, wax wings, feathers, don't fly too close to the sun.
Right, the classic warning against arrogance.
See, that's what we always say it is, but if you really look at the text, it's also about the sheer, intoxicating thrill of technology. Icarus wasn't just being a brat. He was overwhelmed by doing something human biology was never designed to do. He broke the source code.
And that is exactly, and I mean exactly where we are right now.
Yeah.
The Greeks had a word for it. Metron, the natural limit.
Mm.
For thousands of years, we accepted that our bodies had hard limits. We age, we get sick.
We die.
We die. Looking at these documents from the NIH, from the AMA ethics journals, and this chilling report on biosecurity, it's clear we are smashing right through those limits.
We really are. And I want to be clear, for everyone listening right off the top, we are not talking about science fiction. I feel like every time this topic of human enhancement comes up, people's minds drift to, cyborgs in the year 2500.
Right.
But the research we're looking at today is about interventions happening right now. We're talking about tools that blur the line between healing and, well, upgrading.
That is the core tension in this whole deep dive, isn't it? The shift from therapy fixing what is broken to enhancement, which is optimizing what's already working.
Yeah.
And maybe most critically, the dual-use problem.
Double-edged sword.
The exact same tech that lets us edit out a hereditary disease can be used to engineer a pathogen.
It's terrifying. So let's get into the hardware, or maybe the wetware. I was reading the papers on cognitive enhancement, and while everyone is, obsessed with Neuralink.
Because of the branding, sure.
Right. But the tech that really stopped me in my tracks was the Stentrode from Synchron.
It's a fascinating piece of engineering. And it's a perfect example of how the approach to brain-computer interfaces, or BCIs, is maturing. The biggest hurdle with something like Neuralink has always been how invasive it is.
Yeah, most people are not lining up to have a hole drilled in their skull. That seems like a pretty reasonable boundary.
A very reasonable boundary.
Mm-hmm.
But Synchron completely sidesteps that. They call it endovascular, which means...
They just snake this thing up through the jugular vein, right? Is that what I was seeing in the schematic?
Exactly. It's like a stent you'd get for a heart condition.
Wow.
But it's covered in electrodes. They guide it up the blood vessel till it sits right next to the motor cortex. No open brain surgery.
Wow. That just feels like a massive leap in accessibility. And the FDA has already given this a breakthrough device designation. So it's not just a concept.
No, it's on the road. They are using it right now for patients with severe paralysis, like from ALS.
Yeah.
And they can text, email, shop online, just by thinking.
But that's where the enhancement debate kicks in.
Of course. If you can control a computer with your mind to overcome paralysis, why couldn't a healthy person use it to, say, interface with an AI at the speed of thought?
It removes the bottleneck of thumbs and keyboards. But, okay, not everyone is going to get a stent. The sources also mention non-invasive tech, specifically transcranial magnetic stimulation, TMS, that felt a bit more mainstream.
Much more. TMS is basically using magnetic fields to stimulate nerve cells from outside the skull. It's FDA approved for depression, and it works.
But the studies are now looking at it for healthy people.
Yes. They're finding that targeted pulses can improve working memory, attention span.
It's like a double espresso for your neurons, but with no jitters.
A very targeted one. But think about the social pressure there. I mean, if you're a stock trader and you know your competition is using TNS to get a 10% boost in processing speed.
You even have a choice not to use it. It's a classic arms race.
Exactly.
Okay, let's pivot from the brain to the body. The software, the genetics is where things get really wild. We have to talk about CRISPR. And I think most people listening get the basics, molecular scissors. So we can skip the 101. But what struck me is how the application is changing.
You're right. The scissors analogy is a bit played out. What matters now is the precision. Early gene editing was like trying to edit a document with a shotgun.
You might hit the typo, but you're taking out a whole paragraph with it.
Exactly. But CRISPR-Cas9 and now the newer stuff like prime editing, it's like using a cursor. We're seeing therapies like Luxturna for retinal dystrophy, where they basically patch the code to restore sight.
And Zolgensma for spinal muscular atrophy. I looked up the price tag on that, by the way. It's over $2 million.
Per dose. But it replaces a defective gene that kills children. I mean, it is a miracle.
It is. But that's where we slide into enhancement. If we can edit a gene to fix a muscle wasting disease, can we edit one to optimize muscle growth for an athlete?
Or edit the genome to prevent obesity entirely, regardless of diet.
And that's where the definition of disease gets incredibly slippery. Is aging a disease? Is needing 8 hours of sleep a defect?
There are plenty of researchers who would argue, yes, that aging is just an accumulation of cellular errors that can be debugged. But that brings us right back to Icarus, the unintended consequences.
Pull one thread and the whole sweater unravels.
Which is the perfect segue to the difference between somatic and germline editing. This is really the line in the sand.
Right, so somatic editing changes just you. The edit dies with you.
Correct. But germline editing, that's modifying embryos, sperm, or eggs. You're writing that change into the permanent genetic code of the human species.
And we can't talk about this without bringing up He Jiankui in China. The 2018 scandal, he edited twin girls to be resistant to HIV.
It was a massive moment. The scientific community was horrified, not just because he broke the rules, but because of the specific gene he chose, CCR5. He disabled it to block HIV.
But there was more to it, wasn't there?
There was. The part that didn't always make the headlines is that CCR5 is also linked to cognitive function. In mouse studies, suppressing that gene improved memory and learning.
So he might have accidentally or maybe intentionally created cognitively enhanced humans?
It's possible. We don't know.
Yeah.
But it shows the risk. You try to fix immunity, and you might accidentally tweak intelligence or empathy. We were poking at a system we just don't fully understand.
One of the technical risks the sources detailed was something called Mosaicism. The way they described it, it sounded like trying to update software while it's running.
That's a perfect analogy. An embryo is dividing so fast, if the CRISPR tool kicks in a little late, it might edit cells 4 and 5, but miss cells 1, 2, and 3.
So the person grows up as a mosaic with half their body edited and half not.
Yes, and that can lead to all sorts of problems. Autoimmune issues, cancer. It's not a clean find and replace. It's a roll of the dice.
And then there's the equity piece. You mentioned the $2 million drug.
Oh.
If we start allowing enhancement, and it's only for the super rich, we're talking about a biological caste system.
The Gattaca scenario, the genetic elite versus the naturals. And what the AMA journal was very blunt about is that we have a huge data bias problem before we even get there.
Right, the genomic databases. I think the number was something like only 3% of participants are of African descent.
It's shockingly low. So if we develop a therapy based on data from people of European descent, it might fail completely or have dangerous side effects for a patient in Nairobi. We are at risk of baking historical inequality into our biology.
That is just a massive failure. Okay, I want to shift gears. We have to tackle the part of the reading that was, frankly, the most disturbing. The UNICEF report on biological warfare.
The dual-use dilemma. It's the conversation nobody wants to have, but we have to. The tools for saving lives and ending them are identical.
A DNA synthesizer doesn't know if it's printing a vaccine or a weapon.
It just prints A, C, T, and G, and the barrier to entry has completely collapsed. The report talks about cloud labs. You can just upload a DNA sequence to a lab halfway across the world, and they'll print it and ship it to you.
So you don't even need the equipment anymore.
You need a laptop and a credit card.
Yeah.
And AI is making it even easier. There have been studies where AI models were asked to design dangerous pathogens, and they did it easily.
The section that really hit me was the vulnerability of children. I mean, obviously everyone is vulnerable, but the report laid out exactly why kids are the primary victims.
It's pure physiology.
Yeah.
They breathe more air per pound of body weight, so they inhale more toxins. Their skin is more permeable. Their immune systems are still developing.
And behaviorally, they touch everything and put their hands in their mouths.
And we don't make kid-sized countermeasures. It's a nightmare scenario for public health.
The report lists a few foresight scenarios. I think we should walk through them because they show how the battlefield is changing. It's not just anthrax in an envelope anymore.
Not at all. First, you have your engineered superbugs, bacteria resistant to every known antibiotic. A common infection suddenly becomes a death sentence.
Then there are bioregulators. This was a new concept for me, and it is terrifying.
There are chemicals the body uses to control itself. Heart rate, mood, anxiety. The report discusses weapons that don't kill, but incapacitate. Imagine an aerosol that induces extreme panic, or deep lethargy, or memory loss.
It's psychological warfare made biological, and that leads to the gray zone scenario, the strategic nightmare.
Exactly. A situation where you can't even prove you've been attacked. A new strain of flu pops up, or there's a spike in neurological issues. Is it nature? Or is it a targeted release? A state could cripple another country without ever firing a shot.
And the long-term fear is genomic targeting, weapons that only hurt people with specific genetic markers.
Precision bioweapons. The human genome itself becomes a targeting system.
That feels like we've looped right back to the beginning. The code becomes the weapon. Now, before we wrap up, we have to touch on the environmental side. We need to talk about gene drives.
The copy-paste function for the wild. Normally, a gene has a 50% chance of being passed on. A gene drive uses CRISPR to force it into 100% of the offspring. It cheats the laws of inheritance.
So you could release mosquitoes that can't carry malaria, and in a few generations, the whole population is malaria-proof.
Or you release mosquitoes that are infertile, and the entire population crashes to zero. It's incredibly powerful. But the risk is a massive ecological domino effect. You wipe out a species, what happens to the things that eat it?
And you can't recall it. Once it's out, it's out.
It spreads on its own.
You would think, with stakes this high, the regulation would be airtight, but the sources describe it as a Wild West.
Patchy at best. The U.S. system is a mess split between the FDA, EPA, and USDA. And a lot of the regulations are based on plant pests. So if you edit a crop without using a plant virus, you might just bypass oversight entirely.
That sounds like a loophole you could drive a truck through.
A massive one. And internationally, the Biological Weapons Convention was written to monitor countries, not garage biologists, ordering DNA online. Science is moving at 100 miles an hour, and the law is moving at 10.
So, to recap, we've covered brain interfaces, CRISPR babies, mood-altering bioweapons, and crashing ecosystems. We are standing on the edge of a cliff.
We're back to Icarus. We've built the wings. The wax is holding, for now. The question isn't whether we can fly. We're already in the air. The question is how we steer.
So what's the one thought you want to leave with everyone listening? Why does this matter on a Tuesday afternoon?
It matters because the very definition of human is being renegotiated. And I want to leave you with a thought that kept coming up for me through all this reading. We're obsessed with optimization. We want to edit out disease, weakness, pain. We want to be perfect.
Which sounds good on paper.
It does. But in biology, uniformity is death. Diversity is resilience. A monoculture of crops gets wiped out by one pest. A Dioscorus survives. If we start editing the human genome to smooth out all our rough edges, do we risk removing the very genetic diversity that allows our species to survive the unexpected?
So by trying to make ourselves perfect, we might be engineering our own obsolescence.
Exactly. Sometimes the flaws are the features.
That is a thought that will definitely keep me up tonight. Thank you for helping us unlock the code.
My pleasure.
And thank you for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.